Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest with me. I'm really, really excited about this interview because Reverend Tolbert Thomas Jallah Jr. is a newly elected AFSA chair during our AFSA's general election, General Assembly in October 2025 last year. He was elected as a chair of AFSA. I've known Reverend Tolbert since 2021. I remember the first time I met you, Tolbert, I said you look like Martin Luther King.
Yes, I remember.
Not only looking him, facially, but you have a very majestic voice. One thing that I'm really, really, excited to know about you more is how you are a jack of many trades. Reverend Tolbert, he's executive director, he's AFSA chair, he's a PhD candidate student, he's a respected lecturer, a public intellectual on issues regarding peace and governance, nationally and internationally. He's a community organizer, peace builder. You have been doing a lot of things on different issues, not only as a faith leader. So this conversation would be a very, very exciting one. But to start with, can you tell us by your childhood looks like, from the very beginning? How was your childhood? What are the early experiences that shaped you, who you are today?
Well, thank you very much for this fantastic conversation. It promises to be really good during this uh, Holy Week. Uh, we're
Yeah,
talking about full sovereignty during this time
yeah.
of the Holy Week. As we march to the cross with Jesus Christ to bring salvation to humankind. My early childhood was not bread and butter like you have today in other parts of the country and other parts of the world. I grew up in a very small family, and I was brought up by my mother because my father passed when I was a little boy, and I was left with no support, no food, no clothes, and my mother, my late mother, was in fact a physically challenged, beautiful and loving woman who then, in the midst of her own challenge, she was there to support me and to walk with me, to pray for me. And then we had no home, of course. I was born in the Corinth Lutheran Hospital in Zozolofa County, Liberia.
Mhm.
And because we had no home, we had to stay on the mission station in a house that was kept for pregnant women who had some difficulties or challenges when they gave birth. So I stayed in a house with my late mother for several years as a young little boy. In fact, as a boy, I shouldn't be living there, but because of the mercy and grace of God, I was able to stay there with other pregnant women that had complications when they went to give
Mhm.
birth. And so, after several years and missionaries from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in the United States, I began to God led someone to rescue me, to bring me into the saving grace of Jesus Christ. And they lifted me up, picked me up and lifted me up and sent me into the Lutheran mission at
Mhm.
the early age of 9 years. Was the first time I saw inside the classroom at the age of 9. In today's world, 9 years is something.
Yeah.
And so patiently, I remained in that school for 9 years. And every year I have to move from one class to the other through sources, through the special grace of God. and they brought me to church. I became baptized as early as the age of 7. I was baptized, and then I started to go to church. At the age of 13, I was already in school, so at the age of 13, no, at the age of 9, I started to go to church. I was baptized at
Yeah.
the age of 7, and then at the
Mm.
age of 9, I was going to
Yeah.
church with the missionaries, and every Sunday I will be behind them. And at the age of 9, going to church started a school. And it took a long time. As you see on my name, Tolbert, at that time, the president of Liberia was William Tolbert, who gave me the name 1971 when he visited Corinth Lutheran Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
During his visit, my mother gave birth and he named me. But 1980, there
Oh,
was shift in government and he
yeah.
was murdered. Assassination took place. And wicked men and women were going from place to place looking for the Tolbert family. Interestingly, I only got the name. I'm not a member of the family. But the
Mm-hmm.
missionary had to change my name and gave me a Christian name called Thomas,
Yeah.
just to save me from the danger that was ongoing after
Mm.
the coup d'etat, the first one in our
Yeah.
country. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
so for many years, and that name was used until 1990, when again there was shift in the political landscape of the country. Because of that, I normally try to use all of the names together because it depends where you come from, where you are. And so if you are in a specific area, someone will call the other name or someone will call the other name, but that's me. That's me.
Yeah.
Because if I grew up together with you when I was Thomas, or when I grew up
Yeah.
together with you when I was Turbot, and so somebody will say one name, and I always say the other name, but it does not matter actually. But that was the part of my growing up, and I was really motivated and shaped by uh, Christian faith. Born in the Lutheran hospital, grew up in the Lutheran community, went to the Lutheran school, baptized by Lutheran missionary. Automatically, I became a Lutheran, finished high school, wanted to be a medical doctor,
Yeah.
because I grew up in a hospital facility. All I saw about life was being a medical doctor. I thought that was the best thing to ever do to help
Yeah.
bring healing to my community, support community members, work with children. I wanted to go to medical college. But then along the way, someone said to me there was senseless mathematics in the medical college. And
Yeah.
so they felt that after teaching Sunday school for 8 years, I could go to seminary. But I never thought of going to seminary. But as God could have it, I found myself in the seminary. And then that's how the journey started. And after seminary, I went back to do graduate studies in peace and governance in Zimbabwe. And then came to uh, Kenya to do development studies with emphasis in development economics at the postgraduate level, which graduation is already set for October this year. Everything is all set by the special grace of God.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
this has been the journey. It's been the tough journey in the midst of struggle, in the midst of no school fees, in the midst of hunger. And I know what hunger is. I've experienced hunger as a refugee in Ivory Coast, as a refugee in Guinea. I
Yeah.
know what hunger is. I know how important food is. I know how hefty you can be when you have nutritional food. And I also know how sick you can be when there's no food. So that's my little story. It might not be very exciting one, but through the special grace of God, it has come.
To be honest, it's a very inspiring story, the story of courage, grit. I recently listened to your speech for graduate students at I forget the name of the academy, and you mentioned, go with God, go with courage, and dream big. Maybe that speech was inspired by your upbringing, but this is the kind of things that you want to impart to the young generation, to never give up and to dream big. Maybe do you think your life exemplifies that thoughts, that values?
Yes, I remember when I addressed students coming from secondary and they were graduating and getting prepared to go to university and being motivated by Martin Luther King Jr., I could admonish them to think big and to go read and to keep on pressing on
Yeah.
because I have pressed on. I have been running the race and I have come to realize persistency is really good. And no one from my family graduated from high school. And people knew that that boy could be a good for nothing boy. They didn't know that I could be a pastor. They didn't know that I could be doing postgraduate studies. And so I was motivating the students to go with God as they leave the walls of high school. And I always say that to students when I run the corruption free school campaign program. I go down to the elementary schools, to the junior high school, to the secondary schools to share with them and stand with them and support them that this is the way of life. Solidarity with the young people, those who are today's leader and the future leader, they need to
Yeah.
be supported. Yeah. So I remember very well when I make that speech sometime last year.
Yeah, it was a very powerful speech, Reverend. Can you also, I really wanted to know how you kind of reconciled your journey with faith, as a Lutheran church priest, and still continue to be improve your intellectual discoveries too, exploration when you do your degree, your master's degree in Kenya, then you're doing your PhD now, so how are these two things going along? Because it's not a common thing to find in Ethiopian context from where I grew up. If you are raised in a church, with a church service, you kind of craft that journey, that career as a priest or as a pastor, but they're not that daring to go to intellectual or academic spaces and shine there too. So yours sounds a little bit different, and I want you to really explain to me how you manage to do both things at the same time.
This has been
Yeah.
by the special grace of God. When I went to seminary um, 26, 27 years ago, uh, I didn't even finish seminary. And then I was recommended to go to Geneva, Switzerland to work for the Lutheran World Federation.
Mhm.
And my bishop, who sent me to seminary, has forgotten I was a seminarian when he endorsed my application to go to Geneva as a youth intern working with the International Office on Human Rights and International Affairs. This is where I grabbed my motivation with a colleague who's a lawyer called Peter Proof. Peter Proof is now working for the World Council of Churches in Geneva, Switzerland. This is where I got my motivation. And then I came back and completed seminary study. I went back to the seminary and completed 2000 August 15. And 5 years later, 2005, again by the grace of God, I got a graduate study scholarship to go to Mutare, Zimbabwe, in the Institute of Peace, Leadership, and Governance at Africa University, a United Methodist Pan-African University. To do this time, not theology, but peace and governance, which were actually political science. But that time, Robert Mugabe could not agree to have the program called political science. And I was blessed that at that time, the program was situated in the Faculty of Theology. And so when I entered the Faculty of Theology, all my friends knew I was doing master in theology. And so it was not a problem. We were happy. Until graduation day, I was graduating with a master's degree in peace and governance. And they could not imagine that this man, the program is lodged in the Faculty of Theology. At the time, we didn't have our own building. 2 years later, our faculty was built. We have our own building now at Africa University. Then I waited for postgraduate studies. 10 years later. But then I've also received an endorsement to work with the Fellowship of Christian Councils and Churches in West Africa as Secretary General. I worked there for a little bit over 9 years. By 2 years before I will leave, then I enrolled into the postgraduate study, and I have gone to Limuru, Kenya, to attend a conference on land. Land is Life conference. It was organized by Missouri and our Catholic brothers and sisters. TCET has really organized this conference. As I was represented, and I was invited as a speaker, and I got a Liburu and then walked to St. Paul's University at the back of Limuru. And I knew that Limuru would be my next home. This was in November. January 2016. I am on my way to Limuru to sit in the classroom to do development studies. And then I had a fantastic lecturer, senior lecturer in development economics. And this guy coming from Russia with his PhD, when he unpacked what development economics is, theories and practice. I knew that I was going now to specialize in development economics. A new model, a contemporary African economics. So I was moved. And this guy became my mentor. And I began to write series on papers on the economy of Liberia, the currency, the dual currency, on corruption and capital flight, And so I was motivated. So this is how I come by the special grace of God. I've been able to diversify, knowing very well that we live in a world of diversity. And my church have not forced me to remain at the seminary. Every time I went out, I tried to open my horizon. I tried to open up and not go one direction. Then the time they tried to get hold of me, I'm almost finished with all of my studies. Perhaps now I might go to the law school. You never know. Maybe next year I'm
Yeah.
on my way to the law school. So
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what is motivating me to do it this way.
It's out of your curiosity and courage to explore everything. It's very, very inspiring for young generations, to be honest. So, can you also let us know where you have worked? And I think everything is interconnected, but I just want to know more about your experience.
And I will emphasize this by the grace of God. It's a journey that has been tough.
Mm.
To be working full time, pastoring the church full time, in charge of, in my church, there's a board called the Board of Ministry, Theology, Evangelism, and Adjudication. I'm charged with the responsibility of training pastors, assigning pastors, looking around, monitoring them, doing evaluation, their well-being, domestic crisis, and even the training of lay ministers. I was also district dean for one of the districts for about 7 years. I did that. In the midst of that, running the Faith and Justice Network, which is the Mana River Basin network in 4 countries: Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Ivory Coast. And doing all that, then doing research, going around collecting data, coding the data, cleaning the data, giving sense to the number, giving interpretation, and presenting results with recommendations have been really a challenging one. Writing articles, and the most recent one is coming out this week. So that is around already.
Yeah.
Maybe this weekend that will be published. The first
Yeah.
one, from skill to agency, how CBO's education intervention have moved women from poverty and empowered them. So my focus is actually agency, the functionality of agency, and not only skill, but from skill to agency. And the second one that comes out this week is beyond financial inclusion, how microfinance intervention move women to economic empowerment. So I'm going to be the guy around there on gender issues, and I'm going to be the guy around there on economic issues in ASA in the next few years while I'm still around
Yeah.
with ASA.
Yeah.
Because I was there from the very third meeting of ASA, and I'm sure we'll come to that. So I've been around, so I'll be the new guy on the block as of October.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. You have a unique perspective from from phase and your peace and governance issues, now development and economic issues, and at the same time you're an active, ardent advocate for food sovereignty, agroecology movements in Africa. that we'll talk about more later. But can you tell us a little bit more about your experience at FACUA? You were the general secretary. How did that happen, and how was your service there?
At FECAWA as Secretary General for the West African Christian Councils, it was an amazing opportunity. I was like the ambassador for the churches in West Africa. I could move and meet government officials, ministers, and agriculture ministers, and for security, and foreign ministers. And I also led the discussion on Yahya Jammeh. You remember when Yahya Jammeh had a problem in his country? I was able to bring a group of church leaders and civil society actors to meet President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, um, who was in fact the president for ECOWAS at that time. And ECOWAS mandate was that, uh, the Gambia was so small, and they could just ask Senegal to just march in and crush them down, and Yahya Jammeh alone could not threaten the peace of the people of West Africa. So it was a fantastic time serving there for 9 years, almost nine years and a half, working with church leaders. I learned tremendously because I was now understanding who's the primary, who is the bishop, who's the archbishop, who is his eminence, and so forth. And I have to learn how to walk. I have to learn how to sit, because I was in a new environment. People from different churches. Previously, I was used to mainline churches. I was used to Lutheran worship,
Churches.
Lutheran tradition, Lutheran church polity, governance. But it opens me up to understand the African churches, the Anglican, the Catholic, the Lutheran, the Methodist, the United Methodist, the Protestant Methodist, the African Methodist, and all the Methodism. So it was a great opportunity that I was in school also. I think I learned a lot. It was a time working with Francophone and Anglophone. And you go to meeting, and there are many ways to conduct meetings. So I learned a lot that this time I am not going to hold meeting and say, this is the rubber rule. That's what the rubber rule says. But the Francophone got their rules also. And so we were able to place on the agenda for many of the churches on their table advocacy, lobby advocacy program. We were able to table corruption-free school program in churches and church-owned schools. We were able to place on the agenda food justice. We were able to place on the agenda EPI, the trade agreement between West Africa and the EU. And we were able to go to the ministerial meetings and in many parts of the world. We were able to get to the U.S. Congress, and were able to bring climate justice and climate issues, environmental issues to the U.S. Congress, and were able to go to Brussels, to the Council, and were able to go to the Bundestag in Berlin to engage policymakers. We were in Geneva. At one time, we were in Geneva, and the G8 was meeting, and I made a very strong statement. And you might have to listen to that. When I called them the group of evil forces, you call them G8, I call them group of evil forces who control the world through dominance, through capitalism through that their action and inaction, their poor policy choice have brought extreme poverty on one side of the world. They have made
Yeah.
Africa a graveyard. They have heated Africa with global warming. Our rivers, the ocean is burning, is heating
Yeah.
by the policy choice of the group of evil forces that you call them
Yeah.
G8. I still call them group of evil forces that continue to produce weapons to destroy one side of the world. So
Yeah.
Montana, the Fellowship of Christian Councils and Churches in West Africa was good. We did a lot of theological reflection on these issues,
Yeah.
and we had a lot of pastors following the message, preaching it, teaching it in the seminary. We had the audience. We have the big churches in Nigeria that could preach this. One time we went to meet with the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria. That was a big plus that I could lead a group of church leaders to meet with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And we categorically said to Nigeria, do not sign EPA, Economic Partnership
Yeah.
Agreement. Don't
Yeah.
sign it because the EU cannot say to Africa, open your market to the EU, to the goods coming from the EU, and EU say to Africa, we will open our market. EU is not saying the truth. This is fallacy. EU had never
Yeah.
opened their market to the farmers in Africa. In fact, what the EU does is they are dumping on our continent. They are sending the leftover chicken feet, meat parts, 6 weeks old chicken parts. They've been subsidized to do our production and to distort our market with the frozen chicken feet, with the tomato can, with
Yeah.
cheese, the German beer. These are coming
Yeah.
on our market, but I cannot take my juicy pineapple, my juicy banana. I cannot take it on their aircraft to bring it to Europe. And so we said to Nigeria at that time, if you sign EPA, you have sold the continent of Africa. And they listened to us, and they decided not to sign the Economic Partnership Agreement, giving support to the African government. And we were able to have one voice until now. The Economic Partnership Agreement is dying a natural death. They went
Yeah.
bilateral, but yet churches were standing up to say EPA is evil.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful time marching
Yeah.
in the streets, marching with campaign flyers and posters. I mean, I see my flyers and my posters stay. I'm so excited that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
were at the World Social Forum in Tunis. We were there in
Yeah.
Brazil, Rio plus 20. We were there. We were in Berlin. We were in Bonn. We were in Brussels. We were marching in Washington, D.C. Against the pipe between Canada
Yeah.
and the United States. And we had a long queue and said, this is it. And the president must listen. Fossil fuel was
Yeah.
not the way forward. So it was an amazing time.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how I kind of attribute to the African culture to the way we all grow up respecting faith leaders in our community societies, and to be able to to be able to have that space to influence policy discourses at some critical issues that affect smallholder farmers in Africa, citizens in Africa, and be able to speak with governments is a special privilege. When did you become more interested on food sovereignty and agroecology activism work, and does it come from your faith? Is there any theological convictions or scriptures that teach you to really be a voice for the planet, for Mother Earth, for nature? And is that an extension to agroecology and food sovereignty movements? Because I see you also as an activist. One of the things that you are, you do is, a full-blown activist, a campaigner, like you said. So tell us about your introduction to this kind of movements, social movements in Africa and internationally.
I actually became motivated when I started to attend the World Social Forum.
In Tunisia.
And no, the one before that was in Dakar, and then
Uh-huh.
in Tunisia twice, and then we had a meeting also in Brazil
Mm.
with World Social Movement, and I was really happy because I myself have been impacted by hunger in the
Yeah.
midst of abundant natural resources. I know what hunger means. I know how people feel. And I have always stood up during these few years of maybe 25 years now as an advocate, if you will, as an
Mm.
activist. So at some point in time when I deal with my government colleagues, they think I'm too civil society, I'm an activist and so on. But I am moved by Jesus' command when he said to his disciples, let them sit down, give them something to eat. They are hungry. Don't let
Mm.
them go away. Don't let them go away hungry. And so we cannot let Africa to go and the citizen died in hunger. Africa
Mm.
must feed itself. And I'll say feed itself with dignity, justice, and sovereignty. That has been all of the time what I've said. When I joined ASA, in fact, I hosted ASA, I think this was the third general meeting. I hosted it in Lome. Maybe this was 2014 or so. I hosted it across the African continent. For me, it's painful contradiction
Mm.
that continue to unfold. A land rich in natural resources, fertile soil, and resilient people remains burdened by the rising hunger,
Yeah.
deepening food insecurity, and fragile food system. For me, this is an issue. And I join ASA for us to raise our collective voice with urgency and with conviction from scripture, from my faith. Africa's food crisis is not merely a failure of production. I knew this for a
Yeah.
long time. I have come to realize it is a failure of systems, policies, and priorities of national government, African government. System failure imposed by people outside the continent. And so that motivated me when I see people going to bed hungry,
Yeah.
when I see malnourished children in the streets all around Africa.
Mm.
I am beaten in pain, and then I cannot keep quiet. I must stand and be an activist. and be an advocate and be a civil society inside the pulpit where I have the audience. At least by the special grace of God, I am able to speak to at least 100 persons every week. Every week. For me, that is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So this is what motivated me. That in the midst of abundant natural resources, children are dying from hunger. And this is
Yeah.
unacceptable.
Yeah, that's a sad reality of Africa, a continent of so much cultural heritage and so much natural resource wealth. Uh, to see people dying out of hunger, and especially when we have the means, to produce and feed ourselves without really importing, failed agricultural practices from outside. We can be self-sufficient. We'll talk about that more. Now, can you tell us more about the organization that you are leading now as executive director, Faith and Justice Network? When did you join that, and what are the things that you are working with the organization? I know that you are operating on the Mano River Basin, countries. Those basin countries were really affected by, like you said, by hunger, conflict, war, displacement. So, how is your work really impacting those areas, and how are you pushing for agroecology and food sovereignty on your work?
In
Mm,
this basin is very rich with natural resources.
mm,
Liberia alone used to be the single world largest rubber plantation country. We produce rubber, but we send them out raw materials, minerals, gold. They are taken away from the production site. And then they come back in the basin as finished products and sold to us in the basin with high currency. We have rivers, fertile soil, we have gold and diamond, we have thick forests with timbers, yet the people are living in abject poverty. So the Faith and Justice Network is established since almost 10 years ago to promote citizens' consciousness
mm,
that citizens will be able to take action. In this promotion of citizen consciousness, we do it through churches and church-related institutions. We have the audience to speak to do theological reflection on full justice, discussion on hunger, discussion on land grabbing and dispossession, discussion on gender-based violence inside the churches and in the society,
yeah.
on corruption, the high level of corruption, backed by capital flight, continue to undermine peace and security in the basin. And so the Faith and Justice Network wants to see a just peace society where all citizens will have access to natural resources, education, health, the basic social services should be accessible because In Liberia, we are less than 5.3 million people in the midst of abundant natural resources. A small country with $1 billion budget. But with a $1 billion budget, the schools have no chairs. The schools have no libraries. The schools have no chemistry lab, no physics lab, no biology lab. The hospitals have no medication.
Mm.
There are many children in the streets and few in the schools. There's no running water. In the 21st century, there's no electricity. You are very fortunate when you call me. We have just received electricity 30 minutes when you call me. And I don't even know when the electricity is leaving.
Yeah.
In the midst of abundant natural resources, when we have the
Yeah.
Atlantic Ocean, but yet we are not fishing. We are buying fish. In Liberia, we have 9 major rivers where we should have access to fish. But we are importing fish from China, from Russia, and from other parts of the world. For me, this is shame. And so the Faith and Justice Network wants to raise citizen consciousness. We're not taking decision, but we are sitting down to have conversation with people of faith, people who I call by the name Christians,
Yeah.
that we have the imperative command by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ to have conducive environment for the whole being, the total being of God's creation. We deal with environmental issues, how some of the uh, corporations have used chemicals in water. They have abused the environment. They violated environmental rights. We report this and bring it to the court. People that are in prison perpetually, they have overstayed the huge number of pre-trial detainees. We bring this concern to the Honorable Union Secretariat. We go to Freetown and bring these issues to the policymakers. We hold human rights training, human rights workshops. We participate in International Human Rights Day. We participate in International Anti-Corruption Day. We participate in International Women's Day. We participate in World Food Day programs. We participate in the climate change discourses and meetings and along the way through schools, through university, through the churches. So this is things that we do. This is things we do. And we know prior we go into the schools. I just have this in from me. Let me just, you can see we go all around into the schools and show solidarity with the students and say corruption-free school campaign and few
It's
others that
interesting.
we do it. Just a minute. Um, just want to be practical. You can
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
You can see this. So uh,
Yeah.
you can see it. You can see the gender justice and so on. So these are really practical things we talking about. These are practical
Yeah.
things we're talking about. So there's just so much energy and resources that we are putting out there in an effort to promote a just peace society.
Yeah. It's a very interesting concept, just peace society, and I'm also really, honestly, Tolbert, I'm deeply fascinated by organizations who put justice at the heart of their work. Uh, but yours is a very comprehensive way of really handling societal challenges, be it its economic issues or environmental issues. You incorporate gender and justice issues. You work on peace. So it's a more profound and complex and comprehensive way of dealing with kind of challenges and situations that we have in Africa and that you face in your own country. So how does your work being received by governments in your country? Is it good to do advocacy work? How allowing is the environment there to do this kind of very pertinent advocacy, human rights activism work in Liberia?
As you are aware, the shrinking space for civil society in many
Mm,
African countries is the same as we have here.
mm,
In fact, they refer to us at some point in time as agents of the West. Then those that we are trying to bring some of these things to their attention, they again see us as the troublemakers. So this is a challenge
yeah.
when the advocate is seen as the troublemaker.
Mm,
As we speak 2 weeks ago, I mentioned to you someone walking into our secretariat and took away all of the laptops, at least 3 or 4 laptops, took away the hard drive, the external hard drive, took away 3 cameras, took away projector. So you can just see from that concrete example how we've been welcomed.
yeah.
Then, even if you stand in the pulpit to speak, you're referred to as political reverend.
Yeah.
You are sometimes the politician will say enemy of peace, enemy of the government. But our strength have been trying to work with grassroots pastors, grassroots people. Your big churches with a cathedral and so forth, they are fine. They have international partners in Europe, but there are local churches, smaller churches in the villages that are this contributing to education, serving as peacemaker, bringing the people together for social services, into prayer, into conflict mitigation and transformation. They have no resources, but they are living with the people. Presence, the ministry of presence can be felt at the local level with the grassroots pastors. And these
Yeah.
grassroots pastors do understand some of the things we do because they see it as eyes open up. They don't know what their national government is doing. They are the one that welcome us, but they are also powerless. However, they are able to say, I will not beat my wife anymore because I know it's a crime if I did so. I could be arrested and I could be prosecuted.
Yeah.
They can understand that. But for those up there the policymakers. It's about lobby in the parliament. It's about spending money to get the votes in the parliament. Even if you touch them, for them, they say parliamentary procedure require this. They become noisemaker in the very parliament. And if you were to talk to them, they say it's part of parliamentary procedure. That's what happened in parliament. So in terms of acceptance, I can tell you it's like this. Even those at the grassroots sometimes see us as the problem makers. When you say to them, you cannot force your wife to have sex. If you did, that's rape. Then they say, where did you learn that from? She belongs to me. So at all levels, there's some contradiction. But when there's conviction, I have the conviction to raise this collective voice with ASA, with FEKEWA, with the Council of Churches, with other civil society actors, with that conviction. That's what has motivated us and kept us going through all the years. But the responses are not always the best. But those responses, in fact, motivate me to keep on doing.
That's why we respect people who fight despite the circumstances. We're so thankful that there are people out there, including you, and in AFSA, a lot of them in 50 African countries, who are fearless to speak on behalf of the people, on behalf of the marginalized, the affected people, and stand on our truths. And we keep on doing that. While we are in AFSA, when did your organization join AFSA? Can you tell us a little bit more about, Faith and Justice Network, AFSA, and even before Faith and Justice Network, you're part of AFSA, and maybe you can also tell us a little bit more about your journey joining AFSA and where you are today.
Yes, my journey started 2013 in Accra at Angie Hill Hotel. When ASA had a workshop. And that same year, we had launched our Food for Life campaign. We were having a big Food for Life advocacy campaign in West Africa within the churches and in collaboration with civil society to lobby ECOWAS, the Commission on Agriculture, and so forth. That was the point of entry into ASA. Then, when I retired from FEKEWA, I heard Million tells me, you know what? ASA is your home. It's a family. And so you are always welcome to ASA. Then we started the Faith and Justice Network, and then we applied for membership because our conviction and the conviction of ASA that full sovereignty is not a slogan. It's not just a slogan. So I'm convinced that it is a fundamental right. The right for people to define their own food system. And once ASA stands for that, I stand tall with ASA. And the journey continue to move on. And when people can define their own food system to produce hefty food, culturally appropriate food, I am motivated to be part of this great movement. And now they have become a continental movement, the biggest movement on food matters. So I'm fascinated about this. I'm really excited about this. Yeah.
We have been, as AFSA, we have been pushing this agroecology and food sovereignty issues in Africa for more than a decade now. You've been part of the whole journey. You know AFSA, you know our membership. You have been traveling extensively in Africa. You have seen different realities, and you have that perspective, not only from your own country, but from the perspectives of many African countries. So, if I ask you to make a case for agroecology and food sovereignty in Africa, how do you explain to the government, to transition towards agroecology and food sovereignty, and what do you think is the challenges so far? There are some hopes, there are some changes happening in governments. Many African countries are developing national agroecology strategies, but still it's an uphill battle to convince African governments to transition towards agroecology, move away from industrial agriculture. So where are the challenges, and how are you presenting, how are you making a case for agroecology and food sovereignty in Africa?
Well, when I became the chair of the board of directors of ASA, I had some few key concerns. The growing hunger in the land of abundance. Despite Africa's vast agricultural potential, I still see millions of people dying from hunger and malnutrition. For me, that's a key concern. Before I answer your question using that key concern, I also want to look at one of the key concerns of land grabbing and disposition. Communities are dispossessed their land through land grab. Key concern has to do with corporate control, how the increasing dominance role of the multinational corporation. And until we can define and find solution to those, even as we want to transition to agroecology, God's way of farming. That's how we put it, God's way of farming. If we do not talk about climate justice, the vulnerability of the food producers and the farmers, when people are polluting the land with pesticides, with chemical, when corporations do this, if we don't hold them to account, the growing wave of hunger will go up. If we do not talk about land grabbing, the corporate control of the food system, the climate injustice and the vulnerability of the people, we cannot have the transition to agroecology. And I would not even be pushing for a transition. All along the years, farmers in Africa have been doing agroecology. They have access to indigenous seeds. They knew when to plant. They knew when to harvest. Something disrupted the process.
Yeah.
They put fire on our food system. They put fire on our farms and our horses. Now they want us to pay for putting the fire off with a lot of demands. You burn my house, you put fire on my house, and you come that I should pay. So we had to fill in the policy gap and the weak governance system in our continent. There are policy gaps, weak systems. Until those can be filled with maybe the production of organic fertilizer, the distribution of organic fertilizer to our farmers, using traditional knowledge, value of traditional knowledge, and our indigenous community are respected and valued. What is referred to as a transition from the conventional model to agroecology, we can debunk it and say agroecology is the way of life. So why do we need a transition? We need to expel the corporate model. We need to expel agra from the continent. Expulsion by the multinational corporation will help us sustain our agroecology model that we used many years back. But there is a destruction by the corporate food system. And many will say they hijack the food system. Our coordinator will say the food system is being hijacked. So when you hear the coordinator say hijack, it been grabbed. They didn't want to grab the land, they grabbed the food system. And so they come with prescription that we have GM, that they think Africa is a continent of hunger. No, Africa is being constrained into being a continent of hunger. But Africa is not a continent of hunger. Someone had constrained the continent as a continent of hunger. Our people have lost land ownership. Women who are potential farmers have lost access to finance, access to decision making. The youth don't see agriculture as a lucrative business anymore because of the destruction of traditional knowledge, traditional food system, and the fallacy of this is the way to eat. There's destruction. They even teach us how to eat with this hand. And if you use this hand, where is the idea coming from that I should eat with this one? So funny, right? So funny. I can't imagine. There's so many barriers facing. So to use the word that you use as a transition, I think they should leave us alone. Africa can feed itself. But the model they want to use is to enslave us and grab the food system and control the stomach and have the day.
Yeah.
I think this is a problem. They're looking for markets. Where do they sell their fertilizers?
Their chemicals.
Bayer is not my friend in Germany. I've said that consistently. I don't want to talk to Bayer. We can produce our own fertilizer. Organic fertilizer is the way. The chemical fertilizer has done more harm to our people. We have all the health issues. Realistically speaking, how can we be eating chicken feet, chicken parts, when those who are producing it don't eat it? Where's the moral? And they claim that they brought the gospel to us. They claim they brought Jesus Christ to us. So we said no. We joined the campaign that say, eat what you grow and grow what you eat. They don't want to hear that. They are angry when we stand up to say, when we do mobilization, we marginalize the marginalized women and youth. We say, grow what you eat and eat what you grow. When we have a call to action, they are even more angry. So until we can plan what we want to plan, eat what we want to eat, they will not allow us. So for us, agroecology is not a slogan. It is the way of life. It is the way of the African people as they produce and feed themselves. And for us as people of faith, it is God's way of farming. When God placed Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, between two rivers, between the Euphrates and the Tigris River, the Bible says in the fertile, it was not somewhere else where they needed chemical. So agroecology is God's model of farming. So as a continent of faith, a continent of religious people, we want to use God's model of farming, which is agroecology. We're not going to transition to it. We're going to continue to do it.
We have been promised that industrial agriculture will feed Africa, but that promise has been, for how many years now we haven't fulfilled that. Maybe it's time for African governments and the people to really stand strong and say no to the chemical agriculture, the corporatization of our food systems entirely. Recently, you have been to ICAR 20 in Cartagena, Colombia, where you led the AFSA delegation. Can you tell us a little bit more, what were the issues there discussed there and what was AFSA's message and your speech there?
Well, when it comes to the message, I just have the paper right in front of me, which was the launching of the Land, Soil, and Agroecology Working Group when we launched a new campaign on healthy soil, restored our soil and defend our land campaign. Which, healthy food, healthy soil campaign. And so our message was tied to that when we were speaking at the side event and when we were speaking with other colleagues, that this is the message that we bring from ASA. We were disappointed because many of the government, African government, did not really show interest. And I mean, not only African government, but the world, the world body, did not really focus on ACA, talking about agricultural reform and development. we were shocked that only few persons show up. Perhaps it was the challenge in getting travel requirements completed in real time, but the conference did not really deliver what we African people have felt. And I think that maybe Africa themselves needs to come as a continental body to have their own ICA and to really go a little bit deeper on the continent of Africa. But after 20 years, we were surprised that the momentum was even down than going up. So we were really disappointed.
I remember when you were elected as AFSA chair in Addis in last October, you made a very powerful speech where you said leadership rooted in service, humility, and accountability to the people. And that speech was really very inspiring, very powerful. You are really blessed and gifted in delivering, this kind of speech. Everybody was really very much inspired by the speech, and I want to know about the humility issue. You said rooted in service, leadership, and humility and accountability, and I think humility is endangered species in this day and age. Yeah, it has become a very ambitious me world. So how do you see, humility in your advocacy work, especially from the perspective of SAFSA? And what do you mean by it? Can you please a little bit elaborate on that one?
I put it in the context of solidarity.
Mm-hmm.
When we show solidarity, knowing very well that the people are hurting, they're suffering, there's pain
Mm-hmm.
in a continent like ours. Our recent history coming from civil war in many parts of the continent. We've been impacted by Ebola. We've been impacted by COVID-19. We've been impacted by climate change. When we don't contribute, when we have a little percentage, less than 10 percentage in terms of greenhouse gas emission, but our rivers are hot, our homes are hot, our land is being stolen. There's overfishing in our rivers. The multinational corporations have moved in our domestic waters. They have grabbed our land. They are planting sugarcane for ethanol, biofuel production. There's no medication in our hospitals. Our health systems have been weakened by the day. They are moving our professionals. They are making our continent a graveyard. For me, as a son of Africa, we got to show solidarity with one another in humility, being accountable to one another. And every place we find ourselves, even in secret, when nobody is seeing us, we got to be accountable to our own consciences and to our neighbors. Doing what we please our neighbor to be happy. and not what would make them unhappy. For me, leadership is about change. And I'm always focusing on transformative leadership. There has to be a step taken progressively. So when I made that speech, I knew that it was a tough speech in the midst of diverse civil society actors. I knew very well that some of the civil society groupings have been just black bear. It being one man show. Some have no board of directors. Some are accountable to themselves. So I had to make a passionate plea to go to the consciences of civil society on the continent. The leadership is about accountability and humility. And I do that also from my conviction of as a priest, that I'm told to humble yourself, then the Lord will lift you up. The path to greatness, the path to success is when we humble ourselves. That's what I mean. Looking at the parameters, looking around us, people that are hungry, no water to drink.
Yeah.
I gone to some European countries where you don't need a bottle of water. You can just go in the kitchen to the top. You can go in the bathroom to the top and just get water to drink. But why are they producing this from the United States and bringing it here for sale? So what is making Africa poor? Imagine you as an African, you buy water for the last 10 years. So every month in Africa, how much do you pay for water for you and your family to drink?
Yeah.
Can you pull all that money together for 10 years and then live in Germany for 10 years where you will not pay for water? Can you see the scenario? So they are reaping, they are grabbing, they are grabbing. My friend, my brother, 10 years you did not buy water for you, your wife, and your kids for drinking for 10 years. You saved that money for 10 years living in Germany. But I'm in Africa for 10 years, I'm buying water. So why you think I will not be poor? You are saving and buying the common good. The common good have become commodities for some part of the world. And other part of the world is the common for all. So we need to show solidarity.
Yeah.
For me, that's humility when we show solidarity.
It's amazing. Maybe that's one thing that makes really AFSA the largest civil society network in all sense of the word, because anything that happens in Ethiopia, our members in 50 African countries stand together in petition together, advocate for together. So to be able to have that unity as our own, probably singular strength is an amazing. It's an amazing place to be, and it's a privilege to lead AFSA. Probably while we are in your leadership as AFSA as a new chair, can you also share us your vision for AFSA for the next, for your tenure?
I think we need to prioritize agroecology as the pathway to sustainable and resilient food system. I need to participate in that and strengthen that on the ground level. Agroecology is about on the ground movement. We need to protect land rights by engaging the regional blocks, engaging the ECOWAS Commission, and to seek support for local food systems. In many countries, people have lost their traditional food. And this is sad that people lost their traditional food. For so long, our government is not investing in women and youth. We want to advocate strongly that our national government will be supporting women farmers to have access to land, to support the women agriculture colleges for young people, so that the youth will see agriculture as a lucrative venture, that they will have access to their domestic markets, that they will have access to bring goods from their farm to a road to the market, from the farm to the market. We also want to put more premium on inclusive governance. When we have inclusive governance, with the involvement of all actors, we can be sure of sustainability. Few years from now, you and myself will be gone. But if we are not inclusive in today's leadership, then we should expect no sustainability of what we do. And I'm afraid if we don't, our labor will be gone in vain. The final thing will be, and we shall put in premium on from our global level advocacy initiative, is to challenge corporate dominance. And I love how the general coordinator is very progressive, if not aggressive, in dealing with the matter. In challenging the dominance model placed on small-scale farmers and African government and African food producers. The governance of their own initiative is poor. Who is AGRA reporting to? Who are they reporting to? Who are they accountable to? They are not accountable to the farmers. They are not accountable to themselves. We got to challenge the corporate dominance model enforced on our farmers with forced solution. How do you know the parameters of my house? How do you know how my house is built and how it works? When you are far away, leave me in my house and I know how to navigate in my house. Yeah. But they are coming with false solution to feed Africa. But Africa is not hungry. Africa is not a hungry continent. Africa is being constrained into hunger by the corporate dominance system. And so, how can we rework the model? I think this is my concern into the new leadership.
Maybe now, if I give you the floor to hear your wisdom, your message for fellow African citizens. We have been speaking about governments, international organizations, aid industry, donor organizations. But what would be your message to your fellow citizens?
To our allies across the world, Africa's struggle is part of a global struggle. The fight for full sovereignty is a fight for justice, dignity, and the future of humanity. So we must stand together to resist systems that exploit people and nature, and instead build full systems rooted in equality, sustainability, and again in solidarity. We will continue to give this message to the global movement that we must stand together to resist systems that exploit people, that exploit nature. We must stand to build full systems rooted in equality, sustainability, and solidarity. From the beginning, I've said Africa does not need to be failed. Africa needs freedom. Africa needs support. Africa needs justice to feed itself. That's why we push for full justice. The production, distribution, consumption, patents should be based on my choice to feed myself, to eat what I grow and to grow what I eat. I will say to the global community that the time has come to move beyond rhetorics. The time has come for transformation, to transform the food system, to transform Africa, that the farmers will have access to land, they will have access to tools, that the corporate model will be of no option, that the indigenous knowledge and indigenous food will be the model to live with, and that the farmers will have access to seed and have access to organic fertilizer. They know when to plant and they know when to harvest. But if we take away the land, then you take away their life. And that's why we are part of this movement that says land is life. They have their medication on the land. They have their shopping mall on the land. They have the hospitals on the land. They have their banks on the land. They keep their resources there in the grass. And if you take away the land, you take away everything. This is where they live. When you move them from their culture, their inheritance, and so forth. So I want to say we must stand together as brothers and sisters to resist systems that exploit our people, systems that exploit nature, so we can build full systems rooted in equality,